Welcome back to Infra Alpha. Today's video is on modeling LC facilities and removing the circularity associated with sizing net of LC facilities. Let's get into it. LC facilities start with your actual amount of debt service required. So we're going to have a max debt service line. We're going to have a forward debt service line. You want to make your LC facility dynamic by dictating your forward debt service with an offset function. So we're just going to go equal sum the period forward, and then you want to dictate this by your quarters or your periodicity of your model. So this is just going to be a 6-month forward debt service or 2 quarters forward. So I have my sum of the first cell that you want, so your next prevailing quarter, and then you're going to pick up your offset of the immediate cell above and then offset that 2 quarters or whatever your reference is. And then you just simply check this. This is 5.4 and this is 5.44. So that's your go forward debt service requirement. And then above, you're just going to max of debt service requirement. And that's going to be the sizing of your facility. So you're just going to carry this across. And the next step is just taking the go forward max of this formula. So you're going to lock the tail end of this. And that's going to be what your LC facility requirement is going to be. So what this creates is just a conservative way of modeling your LC requirements. And generally in project finance, you always want things to be conservative to ensure that your monthly and quarterly requirements are met always. So that's why you always use an opening interest balance. So you're never, when you're pulling down your DSCR certs and your compliance certs, it's not going to be at a razor thin margin. So then we're going to model the drawn, posted LC fee and undrawn fee or unposted fee. Many people get confused with this. So LC facilities are basically like a check in hand that you haven't cashed. So you have the ability to go and generate cash, but you haven't. And once you go cash that LC in hand, it becomes a loan. So the fees on these are on a percentage of margin and don't have your base rate until they become a loan. So we're just going to pick up our margin, and then we're just going to use 35% of that margin for our commitment fee. So we have our annualized rates, and we're going to calculate our unposted portion of the LC. And all this is going to be is the max less the requirement. So that's basically an LC that's not going to be issued at this time. Then we're going to times our posted LC fee times our rate times our frac, and same thing with our unposted fee. And that's going to create total LC fees. And this is where things begin to get circular. Generally in project finance, LC fees are included in debt service. You can get cheeky and exclude them, especially if you have massive LC fees, but you will experience pushback, and it's going to be more of a relationship and negotiation dynamic if you're going to exclude them. But they are debt service 9 times out of 10. You do need to pay them definitely before you're doing any equity distributions. So why they get circular is you need to take them out of your constrained CFADS in order to meet your sizing requirement. Because if we were to include this, and we're just going to include them in the OpCo, you can definitely split the LC fee. I'm taking a shortcut here where we're not splitting the facility into 2 and allocating everything to the OpCo. Best practice is probably to have 2 LC facilities per tranche, but it's really a docs and structuring item. I've seen it done both ways. So we're going to back out our LC fees from our constrained CFADS, and now we have a circularity issue. So for the time being, I'm going to turn on iterative calculations so you can see, and you'll see it looks like we're undersizing this because we're not including the LC fees in our debt service. But once we do, we just add our LC fees in here, you'll see we get back down to our sizing requirement. So now we're back to a flat 130. And the question is, how do we remove circularity? So the circularity, and I'll illustrate where you your circularity is going to be. So to remove the circularity, we just preserve this formula, is actually hard coding the go forward debt service requirement. And then you'll see we don't have any circularity anymore. So we're going to put this back and we're going to call this the active debt service requirement. And then we're going to have a static debt service requirement. And we're going to use all of our macro mechanics that we previously used to solve this circularity. So we're going to start with just copying all this logic down. It all works, but we're going to replace the sum if. So our range is just going to be the ending month. Our criteria is going to be our ending month, and our sum range is going to be our active. So that's going to pick up our debt service requirement, and we're going to turn on circularity just for 1 second to pick that up. And then our paste is just going to be the opposite. Okay, next we have to define our named ranges. So I'm just going to Alt F3, DSRA copy, Alt F3, DSRA paste. We're going to quickly save, general best practice anytime you're going to run a macro. Then we're going to jump into developer, create a new loop, but we don't have to do too much work here. Our previous VBA and our last step is defining our delta, DSRA underscore delta. And then we just have to replace FinRec with DSRA. If you haven't watched my macro video of how I set all this up, I'll link it down below just as a quick refresher. So I'm going to save one more time. And then what I like to do is just drill into this to make sure everything's working properly. So I'm going to be hitting F8 to just jump into this macro just to ensure that everything's working properly. Then I'm going to jump back to my Excel. It solved itself. And the last step is to just add this to my solve one so it knows to call that macro. Then we're going to close out a VBA. So lastly, just something we want to clean up quick. So now that I've macroed my static requirement, we need to direct everything towards this static go for debt service requirement and not the active. Otherwise, everything's still going to be circular, as you can see. So there's two spots: your max debt service requirement and your unposted portion, as well as your posted LC fee, all needs to be linked to the static reference, not the active reference. Once you've updated that, your circularity errors should go away. Go to error checking or formulas, error checking, circular references. And then all I'm going to do is just solve all my cases quickly. And there you have it. So you have a very simple set of mechanics that are going to allow you to model LC facilities without circularity, all by using a very simple macro. And this ensures you have sizing compliance. We're in compliance with our consolidated sizing and our OpCo sizing, backing out the LC fees in our constrained CFADS to size. That's going to bring down your debt quantum slightly. You're then going to ensure that your amortization has also backed out your LC fees. You include your LC fees in your debt service. Then you simply macro your go forward debt service requirement, 6 months in our case, and there you have it. There's really nothing more to it than that, and doesn't need to be any more complex. Hope you enjoyed the video today. Please like and subscribe. Comment on what you'd like to see next. Check out this next video I've linked to continue your project finance journey.